Couple of minutes, we will get a call from Doug and have a great discussion. I'm really excited about discussing his new book, Decoding Doomsday, and looking at 2012 from a Christian perspective. And certainly the History Channel, the Discovery Channel, the you name it channel is filled with all kinds of programs on the Hopi Indians, on Nostradamus, and of course on the Mayans and their so-called prophecy of doom and destruction come December 21st of 2012. And as I mentioned earlier, as Christians, we need to be prepared in season and out of season to give a explanation of our faith. There are, and I'm not going veering here, I'm actually going in a straight line. There's all kinds of strong scientific data to support and uphold the biblical description of a six-day creation. Not many Christians anymore know that because they've been awash in a sea of evolution and lies. And so they're very embarrassed to say, well, yeah, I believe in creation, because they don't know how to defend it. On occasion, we're fortunate enough to have a couple of scientists involved with the Creation Museum of the Ozarks. They come on board, they talk about it, they give us all kinds of wonderful scientific facts to base our faith on, or to support our faith. I mean, our faith is faith. But there's all kinds of scientific facts that that build that up. So we're excited. And we're excited to be able to support a strong belief and explanation as far as what's happening in 2012. All right. If all has gone well, and I believe it has, I am now talking to Doug Woodward. Doug, good evening, and welcome to the program.
Good evening. How are you, Vince?
We're doing great. Thanks very much for making the time to talk with us tonight. I've really been looking forward to it. I've emailed out to several hundred people that'll either be watching live tonight or on the podcast later. But this is really gracious of you, and I'm very grateful that you'd be with us tonight. Thank you.
Hey, it's my pleasure, and I feel privileged to be a chance to be a part of this.
Well, my mission in life has changed a lot in the last 14 months. In that I had the most listened to talk show in Southwest Missouri with higher ratings than Rush or anybody else. And then my whole life and course changed. I've been a Christian since 1983. I lost my job December of 2010, and I'm sorry, 2009. And from there, the Lord led me down a path where He showed me, Vince, you can keep working as a conservative to win votes for the Republicans, the Constitution Party, the Tea Party, whatever you like. He said, but if you really want to change things, you'll change people's souls, or you'll win people's souls. And it was kind of my Damascus Road, and it was a huge change in my life and what I do. And going back into the ministry, I pastor a home church, and we have our online ministry 4 hours every night during the week. So my life's changed a lot in the last year or so. Tell me about your life a little bit. Tell us about Doug and why it is you've ended up being a strong voice for the Lord.
Well, certainly, I grew up in your part of the country. I live in the Seattle area now, but I grew up in Oklahoma City, went to the University of Oklahoma. So your Missouri listeners will, have to forgive me for being a Sooner, but nevertheless, grew up in that part of the country, lived there until I was 33. But I'd say that, probably the single event in my life that was the most transformative was certainly when I was 15. I discovered that I had a very nasty type of adolescent cancer. I think the name is rhabdomyosarcoma. It's a cancer of the muscle, and eventually caused my left leg to be amputated. And so this was in 1969. And so when I was 15 years old. And so throughout that ordeal, both the going through the treatments, the radiation treatments, the surgery, the recoupment, which took a long time. It was quite a process. I think I was in the hospital a total of something like 65 days over a 6-month period of time. It was a battle, and I had a great family, and I had a lot of different ministers that came to visit me. I studied the Scripture a great deal. I learned a lot about the Bible that, to this day, no doubt gave me a great foundation. But certainly, I think that prior to that time, I'd, like a lot of kids back in those days, watch Billy Graham on television. I think I probably at one point in time, probably when I was around 11, 12, 13, understood what it meant to receive Christ into my life, and I did that. But it was when I was 15 that this all became very personal, you might say. The probability of me getting through the cancer and recovering from that, doctors tell me, was like about 8%. So I had less than maybe one chance in 12 to beat the disease back at that time. And yet I was able to do so through the prayers of people all over the country that had learned about me, and through great support of my family and friends and so forth. So it was a combination, I'd say, of both divine intervention, great doctors that researched the situation a lot and performed their jobs extremely well, and then a lot of family support. So I was blessed, despite the hardships and then the adjustments that really took 2 or 3 years afterwards. Still, I was blessed, and I had great support, and so there's no question that event was huge in terms of making me the person that I am today. I'd probably be remiss if I didn't say, since that time, for the past 36 years, being married to a wonderful woman, my wife Donna, she has also been instrumental in helping me be a better person. Whenever I get a big head, or whenever I think I know so much, she usually reminds me that I need to be humble. She usually helps me find the right way to be humble. But those are key elements in terms of making me who I am.
Yeah, those are kind of significant, buddy. Wow, I didn't know that you had lost your leg to cancer. That is an incredible testimony, and yeah, that I think puts you in a pretty good stead to say, yeah, you know the Lord and can talk about Him. 2012 is everywhere. I hate to say ubiquitous, but I'll pull out a quarter from my pocket and send it to you. But it doesn't matter. I mean, if you're on the Discovery Channel, the History Channel, wherever, it's all about 2012. It's all about the Hopi Indians. It's all about Nostradamus, and of course, all about the Mayan prophecy. Right. And I think that it's seeping into the what I'll call the Christian culture, and sort of by osmosis, whether we want to admit it or not, it's kind of taken over part of our brains as Christians. And I know that there's more than one Christian out there that is a little knocked off their pins over all of this, and they start to go, well, maybe there is something to this whole 2012 thing. You've been very gracious in allowing me to read a good part of your book, and some of the things that you have discovered about 2012, Christians really need to know. So I have a link up on my Facebook page. I have a link up on our website. And if for some reason you can't get to those, email me and I'll get you a link so that you can go and get Doug's book. I've interviewed all kinds of world-famous authors, and this is a book that I would put right up there. There's sort of my gold standard is Mark Levin's Men in Black. Is a brilliant book that I think every American should read, although it's probably too late. I would put your book up there, given what we're coming into, and given the satanic element of 2012 and how I'm seeing Christians getting really confused in their faith over this thing. I'm not being over the top. This is a book, folks, you really do need to get. That being said, what are you going to be doing? I thought about this all day, and it's a cheeky question, but I thought, let's start it off with a little bit of fun. What are you going to be doing December 22nd of 2012?
Well, I'll probably be hosting some type of a "I told you so" meeting with other friends and other Christians, because I don't happen to believe that the 2012 date is necessarily to be interpreted the way that a lot of the folks in the media, perhaps, or in the movies, would have us interpret that date. And there's a lot of things that we can talk about, and hopefully we'll get to some of those tonight. But I'd say certainly, just the very first thing I'd say is that the concept of 2012 as an apocalyptic pointer, it's just not in the Bible. It certainly is not a biblical date that the Bible hints at. There are those who have done some figuring, and there's an old expression, I guess, that figures don't lie, but liars figure. One can do some figuring and can do some mathematics and can come up with some rationales and reasons why 2012 might be an interesting date. Even looking at certain biblical themes and biblical truths and histories and so forth. But really, first off, it's not a biblical concept. So that's element number one. Element number two, for those that are sort of worried about this, or worried that perhaps an apocalypse is coming, and it may be coming, but it's not necessarily attuned to the 2012 gospel, you might call it. It is not really the 2012 apocalypse is not really about the apocalypse per se. It's not really about the end of the world. As I've studied it and read many of the authors, many of which are great authors, by the way, and have written some great books, they're really at a point of just simply preaching that there's a time of transformation coming. And their view is that all of the prophecies and the predictions ultimately are bringing humanity to a point. By the way, I don't subscribe to this conclusion that they draw, but nevertheless, you do see a consensus. Most of the writers and the folks that are advocating for 2012, what they really are advocating for is a belief that something is going to change in the minds of humanity, and that we are going to realize a level of higher consciousness, a level of perhaps being close to being divine, or
and
being
Jupiter aligns with Mars, and peace will be in the yeah.
I was wondering what the meaning was.
Yeah, sorry, buddy. It's not very good.
The age of Aquarius.
There you go. Hey,
but some will tie to the 2012 thing, and others will say, no, that's actually about 200 years from now. So, but anyway, yes, the higher consciousness thing is, in essence, what 2012 is really about.
What the Lord's put on my heart, and I'm not asking you to endorse this, just, fair and open disclosure here. What the Lord's put on my heart is that economic collapse in America is inevitable, and I believe it's going to happen early 2013, but I don't believe it has anything to do with 2012, nothing whatsoever. I think out of that will come a revival, but I don't see Christ's return in the next couple of years. That being said, there are a lot of people who think that the world is ending in 2012. Everything from pole shifts to the volcanoes that are popping, the earthquakes that are shaking. Something that you talk about in your book, it's something that I think is fairly well known, but is it real? I mean, is this really going to happen? And that is this whole planet lining up thing where the Earth, the Sun, and other celestial bodies are all going to be more or less in a line. Is that legitimate? Is that really happening? And if so, how significant is it?
Well, first off, there are a series of eclipses that occur in 2012. Probably one of the main eclipse that's discussed is the eclipse of the sun, eclipsing actually the center of the Milky Way galaxy. To some extent, it's really the dark rift, not exactly the pure mathematical center of the Milky Way. But it's the sun getting between the Earth and the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And so that eclipse is what is supposed to happen on the 21st of December 2012. And that is, for those that subscribe to this concept of a portal that opens from the center of the galaxy, and it's somehow provides certain types of magnetism or light, perhaps, that will awaken human consciousness. That's the key event. There are other eclipses. There are eclipses of the sun and moon. There is also the transit of Venus, so-called, where Venus disappears behind the sun, and that's typically been an important issue in occult religions. In fact, few people realize that the concept of the 5-point star that we're familiar with in the occult, that 5-pointed star actually comes from the transit of Venus, or the way that Venus and the Earth and the Sun align with one another. So, nevertheless, there are a series of eclipses. And one of the particular signs that one of the authors, a guy named Patrick Garrell, who does believe that we are headed for a genuine apocalypse of pole shifts and massive earthquakes and so forth. Garrell believes that there is to be what's called a retrograde motion, where the planet Venus actually will move sort of backwards from the way that it normally moves in the sky. And it's simply caused by the fact that Venus is orbiting, the Earth is orbiting at a great distance greater than Venus, and it appears to us as if Venus sort of does a loop in the sky. But supposedly it does this loop in the sky above the belt of Orion on this, or at this time frame, and that this was the sort of seminal sign that Garrell believes that the Atlanteans, we're talking the continent of Atlantis, saw in like 9762 BC or something like that, that signaled a grand deluge that destroyed virtually everyone except a few Atlanteans that moved on to Egypt, and a few that went to Mesoamerica and began building pyramids like they supposedly had in Atlantis. So anyway, there's some of the fringe elements that go into these eclipses and talk about how they could be, signs of, or portents of great calamity that soon is to befall us. But the reality is that, again, most of the authors around 2012, they point out these signs, but they don't necessarily draw the same conclusions that Patrick Garrell and perhaps a few others draw.
S. Douglas Woodward, you can call him Doug. His book, Decoding Doomsday, the 2012 Prophecies, the Apocalypse, and the Perilous Days Ahead. It's a Christian perspective on 2012 and all of this. Ooh. And so we're thrilled to have Doug with us tonight as we work through at least some of all of that's coming at us in 2012, real or imagine. You talk in your book about a lot of things, but one of the things you touch on is this idea of a new spirituality. I think you even call it a transhumanism, or not so much you do, but other writers have. Explain sort of this idea of transhumanism, because, of course, we've had Tom Horn on, and some people may... So explain what you mean by that. Explain what you mean by the new spirituality that at least some people believe is coming to America or the world. Sure.
Well, transhumanism, and Tom and I, we communicate regularly. In fact, he and I traded some emails today. The sort of the classic definition of it is the implementation of a number of sort of leading-edge technologies, usually summarized by the acronym GRIN, which is genetic reengineering and robotics, artificial intelligence, and let's see, which one did I miss of those? But there's basically a series of different technologies that a number of leading philosophers and medical experts believe that we can begin to take the human species, and its evolution, so-called, into our own hands and begin to make changes in the genetic makeup of our DNA. In fact, they even call for the possibility of mixing the species and creating a new race of humans, sometimes called post-humanism or transhumanism, in which the human is made into a superhuman that may have certain types of DNA from animals or even from plants, that provide additional capabilities from what we have today. And so what I have added to sort of the definition of transhumanism is what the proponents of 2012 talk about when they talk about the transformation of our consciousness so that we become aware and capable of interacting with what we might call the invisible world, the other world, the supernatural, what Terence McKenna, who's a messiah of sorts in the 2012 literature, calls the invisible landscape. So traditional Christians would probably say, oh, you mean interacting with demons or spirits, such as also what the occult would say in terms of being able to, through a medium, talk to the other side. And so, yes, that's a lot of what transhumanism is also implying, is that we will have capabilities that extend beyond the empirical, sort of our five senses, our reason, and we'll be able to also become highly aware of these other beings and be able to interact and be able to begin to manipulate those beings as well. So that's a lot of what is promised in the concept of transhumanism, a la 2012.
I'm speaking with Doug Woodward. His book, Decoding Doomsday, is a brilliant work that any Christian needs to get their hands on to really be prepared to give an account of your faith in season and out of season, and to be able to debate knowledgeably with all of these proponents of the end of the world or this dawning of a new age in 2012. And something that struck me through this, Doug, was I'm not nearly as up on the McKenna brothers as you are, but I was aware of them before I read your book. Pinchbeck, I'd heard of. But there's almost this arrogance that goes with the New Age. I don't know if you saw Ben Stein's movie. I thought it was kind of humorous at the very end when he's talking, and this is all about evolution versus creation, and he's talking to this primary proponent of evolution. And he finally gets the guy to admit that, well, the spark of life came from an alien. Yeah, that's where it came from, an alien. And Stein sort of goes, well, why is it all right for you to believe in an alien, yet you look down on people who believe in some sort of creator? And the movie sort of ends with this guy looking dumbfounded. But when you look at the amount of drugs consumed by a lot of these people to get to this holy place, and then they commune with these beings, these entities, this cosmic universe. I mean, one, they're stoned. Two, they're talking to demons. And this is where a lot of this, excuse me, but crap is coming from. And I'm not sure a lot of Christians really understand that there's a whole lot of drugs being smoked or consumed, and that there's, and even if you go back to, and I'm sure we'll get to it, if we go back to the Mayan culture and how they were getting in touch with their spirit guides, it's a whole lot of drugs and a whole lot of demonology from what I can see. Right.
Oh, it definitely is. There's no doubt about it. As I sort of probe and read other things, I'm finishing a book now by Graham Hancock, who, of course, has written a number of books on the pyramids, the Ark of the Covenant, and so forth. He wrote a book in 2007 called Supernatural, and his thesis is that all religions, including the Christian religion, he believes, were started by humankind utilizing psychedelic or hallucinogenic drugs to encounter spirit beings, and so that we were basically all religions were founded by shamans, or depending upon how you pronounce that word, and including, of course, he would say that Jesus was, perhaps the mightiest shaman of all. We might happen to say that he actually is God, as opposed to being an intermediary. But it's fascinating because almost all of these proponents for these concepts of the extraterrestrial origin of human life, which Hancock spends an immense amount of time talking about, so he thoroughly believes that.